I mean, if you stand for God and do what he wants you to do, you might be like, the different ones that have gone to prison for standing for God. That happens, and you can read Hebrews 11 and you will see all the various things that have happened to God's saints over the years. And but we need to stand for him regardless. He's going to take us through it. In Daniel, it talks about Daniel, and everybody knows Daniel went to the lion's den. Why? Because he did right. He followed God. And so he wound up in the lion's den. But that's not a problem for God. God just protected him from the lions, didn't he? And it's the same way in this world. He can either take you through it or take you home. Okay? Take you home to heaven is great and blessed. But to take you through it is also blessed. And so we also had the 3 men in the fiery furnace. We all know those very historic things, that here are 3 men that wouldn't bow down to the king, and so he cast them into the fiery furnace. And behold, the king, even the men, it was so hot that the men that threw them in died from the heat of the furnace. And then the king, looking at him, he said, how many did we throw in there? There's 4 of them in there walking around like they're just having a good time. That's because God can do those things. And so when he commanded them to come out, the king came out, they didn't even smell of smoke on them. And they walked right out of that fire that killed a couple of his top servants. God can do those things. Now, when they gave their testimony to the king for not bowing down, they said, well, king, we don't care. Either way, we win, basically. He said, if you throw us in the fiery furnace, well, we'll either go be with the Lord or he's going to save us and we'll walk out here again. And as it turned out, he walked out there. They walked out again, and then the king made them bow down. Everybody had to bow down to their God, the true God of heaven and earth. They became leaders in Israel, in captivity, leaders in captivity of the Babylonian captivity. So Daniel also, he was the head of all these things. So God can use you in all those ways. Just seek him and do what he wants you to do. So again, in verse 6 now, the end of verse 5, and the kingdom was quiet before him. So Asa has a quiet kingdom. Things are going well. And then verse 6, he built fenced cities in Judah, for the land had rest. And he had no war in those years, because the Lord had given him rest. Who gives rest in this life? God does. The Lord does. He's the one who'll give you rest. You go through terrible trials and troubles with family, with friends, with the government, with everything in this world that is not of God. And what happens? He'll give you rest. He'll give you a sweet time to just be out and about and to enjoy the Lord, okay? Not under the pressures of being in your normal place. So, verse 7, therefore he said unto Judah, let us build these cities and make them about them walls and towers, gates and bars, while the land is yet before us, because we have sought the Lord our God, we have sought him, and he hath given us rest on every side. Who gives rest? You seeing that throughout these verses? He hath given us rest on every side. They sought the Lord our God. We have sought him, and he hath given us rest on every side. So they built and prospered. But what did they do? They built security. They built walls. They built gates. They built bars and fences and things to keep the enemies away. And that's the right thing to do. You talk about all these people that are against building a wall on our borders, and yet you go to their house and they got big walls all around their property and gates that you have to open and stuff. See the hypocriticalness in our politics and our politicians, how ridiculous it is. But that's all, again, because of sin that happened in Genesis. So all have sinned, come short of the glory of God, but Jesus Christ will take that sin away and make you a child of God. Verse 8, And Asa had an army of men that bare targets and spears out of Judah, 300,000, and out of Benjamin that bare shields and drew bows, 280,000. So 280, that's a fourscore is 80,000, and 280,000 that drew bows and bare shields. All these were mighty men of valor. So you think, boy, that's really something. Here's over 80,000 men that he's got there to do those things. And mighty men of valor. But look at verse 9. There came out against them Erah the Ethiopian with a host of 1,000,000. What's 1,000,000? Anybody know? 1,000,000. Here's an Ethiopian comes up out of Africa, the king there, with 1,000, with 1,000,000 soldiers, 300 chariots. He came unto Marisha. So Asa, with his little group of less than 100,000 there, at one point with everybody together, they had a couple 100,000. But in Judah, that went out to war. But here we have over 1,000,000 people. Now the million wasn't used in Bible times, and so that's why it says 1,000,000. And the 300 chariots. Then it says Asa, he's a good king. He sought the Lord. He's following after God, and he's had all this rest and all these good years, 10 years of just quiet and peace and restfulness. Then Asa went out against him, and they set the battle in array in the valley of Zephathah at Marisha. And Asa cried unto the Lord his God and said, Lord, it is nothing with thee to help, whether with many or with them that have no power. He just simply makes a statement, God, everything relies on you. And so even if we're few and they're many, it makes no difference because you're the God of the universe. And so it doesn't make any difference. He says, with them that have no power. And then he says, help us, O Lord our God, help us. For we rest on thee, and in thy name we go against this multitude. So they're just assured that God, they are going in God's name, and God's not going to fail his name. He's going to carry through, isn't he? And so we just need to realize that God is powerful. He's still the same yesterday, today, and forever. And here he goes, they're going to go out against this multitude, outnumbered by, 100 times? 1,000,000 people against maybe 100,000, 200,000? So not much hope there for the little guy, is it? But with the Lord, you got it all. So he said, go with, in thy name we go against this multitude, in the middle of verse 11 or the end there. O Lord, thou art our God. Let not man prevail against thee. See, man's not prevailing against Asa and his troops. Man's prevailing against God. Now listen, when you start fighting against God, you're in a losing situation. And you have to remember that in the battles of this world. When people start fighting against your God, then he will protect you, and he will take care of you, or he'll take you even home. And there's nothing wrong with either of those situations, is there? We've seen that from Daniel and the 3 men in the fiery furnace and so forth. And other examples in the Word of God. So the Lord smote the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. 1,000,000 people, I can't even see them hardly getting into that country from the south like that. And yet they fled. Why? Because God was fighting them, and you don't fight against God and win. And so the Ethiopians fled. And Asa and the people that were with him pursued them unto Gerar. and the Ethiopians were overthrown, that they could not recover themselves. There was no hope for Ethiopians anymore to rise up. They had been destroyed. For they were destroyed before the Lord and before his host, and they carried away very much spoil. So here now Israel's gained. God has given them all the spoil of the Ethiopians. And so that means that they had great gain from this warfare that they let God take care of. Oh, I just love to read the different things about Gideon when he went out and the Lord, just says, oh no, I can't take all these 10,000, that's too many. No, not 1,000, not 100. No, how about 300? Maybe 300 men. That's plenty to destroy the enemy. And they didn't even have to do anything but sit and wait for God. Let the men, and God got them all, they blew the trumpets, they had their torches there, and all the whole enemy camp just started fighting each other and killing each other. They didn't have to do anything but sit and watch, shout and sing praises to God. Boy, but a number of places in the Bible where you see they went out and blew the trumpets and sang praises when they had no other hope but God. And God won the battle for them. Verse 14, and they smote all the cities round about Gerar, for the fear of the Lord came upon them, and they spoiled all the cities, for there was exceeding much spoil in them. They smote also the tents of cattle, and carried away sheep and camels in abundance, and returned to Jerusalem. God did that for them. And I can remember, I can remember how things that God did, but saying that God did it. God did it. And here back at Worcester Central School, when I was driving the bus, and we were up in Richfield Springs, and you've probably all heard this a dozen times, but the coach, our team was, Richfield Springs was doing much better than our basketball team there. The boys were playing. And at the end of the third quarter, I had to go out and get the bus ready. And I told the coach, I got to go get the bus ready for you. But you've got a quarter left, and I'm going to go out and pray. And I'm going to pray that God will just confound the Richfield Spring players, and that our men could win this game by God's power. And so I did that. And I can still see the Coach J.K. come out that door, first one out after the game there, and he comes out, and he's just jumping up and down. He says, he did it! He did it! He did it! And so they won the game. Now you say, well, that could have just happened by chance. No, God did it. I mean, these things don't happen by chance. And God just saw fit that it was time for them to hear what his power is. And so after all the team got on the bus and we were ready to head home, the coach had to stand up and tell them, now you know what happened in that game, don't you? You know Mr. Timmerman, when he comes out and prays for us, and the God of heaven took and gave us that game. The witness that was given right there, publicly, for the sake of Jesus, the namesake of Jesus, for God's name was at stake, and he did it. And so I see that here as it says that, he did these things. For they were exceeding much spoil. They smote also the tents. They came in and returned to Jerusalem. Now let's go on through chapters, let's see. Yeah, we can do it. Through chapter 15. And the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, the son of Oded. And he went out to meet Asa, and said unto him, Hear ye me, Asa, and all Judah and Bethlehem, Benjamin. The Lord is with you, while ye be with him. And if ye seek him, he will be found of you. But if ye forsake him, he will forsake you. How about that, huh? Okay. Here's a man comes out, Azariah, under the Spirit of God, to tell them this truth. Well, God said that all through his word, from Genesis on through it. If you seek him, he'll take care of you. And he went out to meet Asa and said, "Hear ye me, Asa, and all Judah." So the whole nation there that's going to war. He said, "The Lord is with you while ye be with him." The Lord's with you as long as you stay with him. You follow him. "And if ye seek him, he will be found of you. But if you forsake him, he'll forsake you." Listen, you can seek God and he'll find you. And you'll find him. And how wonderful it's going to be. Let's see. Well, look at Hebrews 11 while we're, just hold your place there. I'm going to flip over to Hebrews 11 there and read that one verse. Hebrews 11 and verse 6 says, "But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is." First of all, do you believe that God is? Is God real? Or are you saying, "Oh no, God dead. There is no God in this world"? He's real. He's there. And you can believe in him. You must believe that he is. And that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So diligently seek God. By faith, go after it. And he will be found. You're going to find him. Back to chapter 15 of 2 Chronicles. "And so the Lord is with you while ye be with him. If ye seek him, he will be found of you. But if ye forsake him, he will forsake you." See what happened in the northern tribes, the 10 northern tribes. The leaders forsook God and went after idols and all of man's religious services and all those things. And so he forsook them. They even took the good priests that they had, the Levites, and sent them back to Jerusalem. And he set up his own that were not godly people, not the ones God said should be there in the northern tribes. But Judah and Benjamin are doing what the Lord wants them to do. A godly leader, Asa. And that's what it takes, is somebody godly to lead and lead it right. Now, some people would look at some of our politicians and say, "Well, they're pretty good, they're godly. This one's better than that one." Well, yeah, that doesn't take much, does it? The politicians out there, this one's better than that one. That doesn't, what do you do? I mean, that doesn't mean either of them godly. We've had in the last several administrations, we've seen all that. Even under when President Trump was in, he said, "Oh yeah, it was a lot better than what we have now," and I agree with that. But the thing is he went out and he's the one pushed worldwide gender notifications and same-sex marriage around the world. He threatened countries that wouldn't accept his putting that into their constitution, their countries. He pushed them and said, "We're going to cut off funds to you if you don't agree with same-sex marriage and this kind of things." And so that's not godliness. That's wickedness. Same way with abortion. I mean, we get into this, well, some abortions are okay. No, abortions are killing babies. It's killing people. Why would that be okay with God? So we see these things. But he'll be found of you, or he'll forsake you if you forsake him. Now, verse 3 of chapter 15, "Now for a long season Israel hath been without the true God, and without a teaching priest, and without law." This man of God is speaking here and telling them why they are prevailing, why they are having peace, why they are having rest, because God's giving it to them for following God, for being part of his, what he wants them to do. So this man goes on, this man of God goes on and says in verse 4, "But when they in their trouble did turn unto the Lord God of Israel and sought him, he was found of them." So he's saying even in Israel and the northern tribes, when men sought God, they found him. And we see many places of the feasts in Judah that called on Israel. There were godly men that came out of Israel to celebrate the feasts in Jerusalem. We're not going to look at all those. We've looked at many of them as we've studied through Kings. Verse 5, "And in those times there was no peace to him that came out, nor to him that came in. But great vexations were upon all the inhabitants of the countries." This is this man of God still telling Judah here and Asa about why God is with them and not with Israel. Verse 6, "And nation was destroyed of nation, and city of city, for God did vex them with all adversity. Be ye strong, therefore, and let not your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded." There again, he's encouraging them in the Lord. He's saying your work in following the Lord, destroying the wickedness of the nation, is going to be rewarded. When Asa heard those words in the prophecy of Oded the prophet, he took courage and put away the abominable idols out of all the land of Judah and Benjamin, out of the cities which he had taken from Mount Ephraim, and renewed the altar of the Lord that was before the porch of the Lord. And so now he's cleaning up in the other cities now that they've taken, because remember when he first took over as king, he followed the Lord and he cleaned up the country in Judah and around there. Now he's going out into other parts where they've had godly men coming in from and cleaning up those areas too and getting rid of the idols and the wickedness that's going on there. Verse 9, "He gathered all Judah and Benjamin and the strangers with them out of Ephraim and Manasseh and out of Simeon, for they fell to him out of Israel in abundance, when they saw the Lord his God was with him." So people saw, okay, God's there, God's with those people, and so we're going to go there because we don't want a rotten king that's against God. God's going to destroy us because of our king's leadership. And so they went to Israel, or to Judah, to be under Asa and his reign, out of all these different places that are mentioned here, out of the 10 northern tribes. Verse 10, "So they gathered themselves together at Jerusalem in the 3rd month, in the 15th year of the reign of Asa." So now they're all getting together, all these strangers from the land of Israel, from these different, the different regions of Israel, and they're all coming together for the feasts in the 3rd month, the 15th year of the reign of Asa. Verse 11, "And they offered unto the Lord the same time of the spoil, which they had brought, 700 oxen and 7,000 sheep." So that's some of the spoil that they brought in from the Ethiopians that God ran off and destroyed before them. Verse 12, "And they entered into a covenant to seek the Lord